Captain, incoming message.
It was the dawn of the third age of mankind. Groovy.
Hi-ho. This is me, Kermit the Frog.
Hello there.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Not a great plan.
Oh, for crying out loud.
Program complete. Enter when ready.
Let's see what's out there. Engage.
Hey there, we're those sci-fi guys, and this is that Those Sci-Fi Guys show. Just two working dudes, different lives, different jobs, but a whole lot of love for science fiction and the fun that comes with. We are your hosts. I am P.S. McKay, and I am proud to present that we have a new crossover event with some very dear friends that I'm pretty sure that you're going to recognize. So please, take a moment and welcome.
Hey there, the net. Welcome to the first episode of Thanks for the Clamories. I'm here with Glenn Quagmire. Hi. Cleveland Brown. And... Hello. And Joe Swanson.
Yowza!
All right, Quagmire, what do you got for us? Let's make a clamory.
Yeah. So welcome to them.
Jesus.
I'm
like DT Cav, man, and I'm just sad for you.
What do you mean? What? I mean, seriously, here.
This right here, this rambling, boring conversation containing already made before observations, this could be a podcast.
Yeah, and that's what we do. That's literally what we do.
No, Mack, you're not wrong. You're just an asshole.
That's also true. So we're just going to continue with it right now.
All right, you guys, podcast time. We got the equipment and the perfect business plan. Give our show away for free and tell no one how to find it.
I'm going to sign out. I'm serious.
That's it. That was all. You talked over 3 seconds. Those are the 3 drops. I thought you would appreciate them.
No.
You disappoint me.
I've been pretty disappointing to a lot of people lately.
Yeah, apparently.
Actually, I came back to work with pretty huge fanfare today. My partner's like, "Thank God you're back."
Nothing extols appreciation than competence.
Well, that's what happens when you try to slapdash a replacement. It's like, hey, one of the senior guys could slide over and cover a little bit. No. We'll just have all these people who have never been trained on any of this stuff. They'll land the people when they come in. And I'm like, all right. All I've heard when I got back was just how terrible the next day's routes were and how everything else was crazy.
Weird.
I was talking with my boss yesterday. I was like, "Hey, I'm all set to come back tomorrow." He's like, "Yeah, that's great. We really need you." I'm like, "Didn't I tell you? I told you this is why you need something. You guys always put so much focus on the early guys, but it's the landing that needs some serious help, and that's what I've been doing for 2 years."
That's what it is. That's what it is. How are you doing, DT?
It was practically like never leave again.
That's good. You're wanted. You're needed. Nay, needed.
In the military, they always say never make yourself so, indispensable that things fall apart without you. Like as a good leader, you should be training your subordinates to, be able to fill your void and step up. That's showing good leadership. Yeah, that doesn't really happen much in this corporate world because
private sector is completely different.
There's not depth and redundancy.
No, there is not. There is not. And I noticed that you were longing for that depth and redundancy and a comment you made a couple years ago or a year before. And I'm like, that doesn't work in the private world.
Well, somebody actually asked me one time,
profits.
What's the biggest difference between the civilian and the military? I'm like, depth.
Yeah.
I'm like, we have every officer position typically has a non-commissioned officer counterpart. Okay.
Yeah.
Who's like,
Yeah.
and then at higher ranks, you have a deputy officer under you whose job is to be the second in command and to assume the role in absence or otherwise. That's how we're literally designed. That way, you know, when you lose people in combat, you can still keep fighting and possibly win.
Yeah. Well, you know, in the words of
It's
that
why you have a
Cardassian
backup
woman,
quarterback.
in the words of that Cardassian woman on Deep Space Nine when she was quarreling with O'Brien. So you're telling me that there's a backup for the backup to the redundancy system, which is a backup of the main computer. And Chief O'Brien's like, yeah, absolutely. She's like, is that not a little too much? He goes, well, you could say that, but, you know, if we're in a situation that I need that third backup, I'm going to want that third backup. Do you remember that episode?
I do. That was Tracy Scoggins, the future Captain Lockley on B5.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, she was great in that episode of Deep Space Nine. Just fantastic. I mean, and then she interpreted all the animosity between him and her as, like, flirting.
Yes, because apparently that's how Cardassians flirt.
Which is awful. It's an awful society if that's how they flirt. God damn. Anyway,
Well,
so you healing up well? Doing all right?
yeah, first day back at work today. A little sluggish. You know, clearly going to be office bound for a few weeks, and
Yeah,
that's fine.
tough putt.
It is what it is.
Well, I wanted to bring up a couple things. We have a main subject today. We're going to talk about Star Wars Underworld, Tales of the Underworld, but I wanted to bring up a quick thing on the pod. This is the 20th anniversary of the ending of the Rick Berman era of Star Trek. Yesterday,
The golden age of sci-fi.
Seriously, it really was all of sci-fi. So Michael Okuda posted today, like it came to his attention that this is his post on Facebook that I'm showing here, but it came to his attention that it's the 20th anniversary of the last airing of Star Trek Enterprise, and you know, he had wonderful memories. Like he stated that he was with Star Trek since Star Trek 4, so he was with Star Trek since 1986. I believe, and then
85 probably.
5, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okuda.
Yeah, and then he said he was very fortunate to be with the organization for nearly 20 years, and I you know, this is the picture of him, and
was he the one who invented the L cars?
He did, and he actually went to Roddenberry and said, "Why are you doing round screens when we have square screens?" And Roddenberry had no good answer. I mean, he wasn't the designer of that stuff. And he's like, well, you know, let me design better round stuff for you. So he's the reason why the round screens have more depth to them in Star Trek 4, 5, and 6. That's all Michael Okuda. And that's the original. I always think of the original series Star Trek movies as being separate from the TV shows like TNG, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager. Because they kind of were. They had different producers, they had different writers and everything. But Michael Okuda was that one bridge between the two.
Colonel Worf.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure. What was it?
Star Trek
William
6
Shatner approached. I think William Shatner approached Worf.
I think he did.
Sorry, Michael Dorn.
Approach Michael Dorn. And
let's not forget Worf. He's
how
Worf
much
in my brain.
How much of the Next Generation set they actually filmed on in Undiscovered Country?
Oh, yeah. Well, also, Final Frontier. They redressed a lot of that stuff too. And here's the other side of that. A lot of those sets for TNG were reused sets from the original, from the first movie, the motion picture, just redressed. So, I mean, it's all incestuous, right?
I saw a meme today, and it was a picture of the Enterprise D bridge, and it's like, in the 80s, Even our starships had carpeting and wood paneling.
Yeah, I know, right? So, yeah, it did, and I remember I was watching a behind the scenes thing about that, and like the carpeting was the hardest thing for them to be able to replace in Star Trek Picard season 3. And this is a close-up shot of the producers with Rick Berman and Michael Okuda, and I think the guy on the far right, that young man, is Terry Metalis. I know.
I'm trying to see it. I don't know.
It's tough. I can't zoom in, but I think it might be. And then this is a shot of Enterprise with the whole crew, everyone, the production crew, the actors. Scott Bakula is right there in the front there. Phlox is over here in the. Well, you can't see my cursor, but he's like 1/3 of the way back. There, you'll see everyone. Jolene Blaylock's right next to Scott Bakula, and she's all like huddled up. That's funny.
She's right next to, I think, Linda Park.
Oh yeah, I didn't recognize her. I was looking for her too.
She's not in costume. That's
half of them aren't in costume, so you can't recognize them. Well, I've got face blindness, so I use other cues to recognize.
Yeah,
people, so.
we know.
I know. So, but Paramount Pictures, sadly, that lot looks like it's going to be closed down completely and sold off.
Wow, I didn't realize in the upper right-hand corner of this picture, I didn't realize StreamYard went back that far. It's got this nice duck logo right
placard
there on the building.
I know.
Yeah.
StreamYard's been around since 1984. Okay. Did you know this?
By the way, there is a dude. By the way, did you notice that there's a dude in the window above that big tree on the right side?
Oh, there is. I didn't notice that. Oh, what? All right, I got to look this up. All right, I'm going to see if I can share my screen or something on this. One second.
It looks like it's almost painted in.
It's plausible. Hold on. Let's see. Oh, it's totally a paint in. Okay, hold on. Let me share that real fast with you. It's gonna take a second. Share screen.
That's weird, man.
It is weird. It is weird. Window. Here we go. There. That's a paint in. That's totally a paint in. That's crazy. What is that? I'm gonna have to look that up. All right, you're gonna have to vamp for a little bit as I look that up. But yeah, that's nuts, dude. So
well,
you know
that was the ending of the Berman era, the 18 consecutive years of Star Trek on TV, and it was most of it was some of the best sci-fi on TV.
You know what? I'm not going to look it up. I'll talk about it next episode.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Were you deployed when the last episode? Because they aired Terra Prime and the last episode the same night. Were you deployed at that point, or were you able to watch it when it aired?
To be honest with you, I really didn't have a lot of regular TV watching in that first couple of years I was in the Army. I moved around a lot.
Wasn't in the Army. I didn't have a lot of regular TV watching either, but
I moved around a lot. I'd catch some episodes a little, but I didn't fully see the entire run of Enterprise until I bought it on my second and watched it on my second deployment.
Yeah. It took a little longer for me to do that, but I was able to watch. I bought the TV guide, and I should have brought that out. It's in my closet. I'm not going to get it out, but I wasn't prepared. I had other show prep to do. Not blaming you, by the way. I had other show prep to do, and my dog was, so I didn't think about getting the TV guide out till just now. Damn it. But
peace, my friend.
I watched that episode. And I remember TV Guide talking about like the actors saying, "You're gonna hate it. and Rick Berman saying it's a Valentine to the fans. And we've talked about the final episode of Enterprise before, and
a lot of the actors hated it.
Oh, all of them hated it, except Frakes and
Sirtis.
They were okay. I mean, because they got to put on the uniform again, right? And we also got to see the Enterprise D in full digital HD for the first time, which was cool. But I remember being underwhelmed that it was just a single hour. And it was it was 2 hours, but it's two completely different stories. And the final hour took place like 5 years later. And it was just a single hour, and it was Shran going on a side quest. And on that side quest, Trip gets mortally wounded and he goes into stasis. It's implied that he dies, even though it's in beta canon, he's not dead. But it was implied he died. It was a very somber moment. We got to see Trip in a later scene near the end when he's talking to Riker as chef. It was a bittersweet episode. I wanted to like it. It was also it was 05, so I was in a weird position professionally where I didn't want to stay in the company that I was at. I had an offer with another company, and that other company had a friend of mine that offered me, and I felt like if I took that offer, I was cutting myself off from other potentials from this company that I was at, that I'm still at now. So I was in the middle of a big decision too at that time. Like, I had to choose between a very dear friend of mine and his company, or staying with a company that up until that point I felt very miserable at for a while. That went away real quick shortly thereafter when I chose to stay with the company, but it was a weird the Riker situation really bounced off of me at that time.
You mean dressing up as a chef and then a Mako?
Exactly. Yes, exactly like that. Did he dress up as a Mako? He also dressed up as a tactical officer, didn't he?
He wore several different period uniforms. He was in
all
the
of them
shuttle.
looked too small. All of them looked too small.
They did.
No judgment. No judgment. That's the wardrobe.
If they had just kept him in the galley as chef, I think that might have been a little better.
That storytelling device actually would have been pretty great. And he could have walked through all of the sets invisible, dressed as chef, as he observed things happen. Oh, goddamn, that would have been better.
And here's the thing. It would have been a fine mid-season episode, especially if you get rid of the Trip dying part.
Yeah.
Even, but for the series finale, it did feel like a slap in the face.
It really did. It really did. And I understood how the actors didn't like it, and I felt underwhelmed by it. And everything. And I wasn't one to have a lot of independent thought at the time. I walked out of Star Trek Nemesis going, I really want to like this movie. I really want to like it. So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5 stars, even though it really deserved a 1.5 star,
2.
Maybe 2. Yeah. I'll give you that, It was out of 5, by the way, out of 5, not 4, out of 5. But yeah, so I was still developing my brain. Your brain's as a red-blooded American male, your brain's not fully developed until 26 years old. That's just proven. That's
normally as a human, but
no. I'm going to stick with Western male. I can't make other distinctions outside of the sphere that I know. So I want to be very clear.
I'm pretty sure physiologically, but that's I have a lot of medical people in the family.
Growing up,
That being said,
I mean, yeah, we could. I'm just saying, I don't want to offend outside the world. So, but
well, anyway, you mentioned what brings us here tonight, and
yeah,
we do need to get crack-a-lackin' on these, to quote something from like 15, 20 years ago. Tales
what
of
the
the
fuck
Underworld.
was this? What the fuck was this scene? Please tell me.
This scene is basically an epilogue to the book Dark Disciple.
Okay, because I'm sitting here watching this. Is the opening scene of Dark? Was it Tales of the Underworld?
Tales of the Underworld. So after the cancellation of the Clone Wars, some things that had been written that should not have been forgotten became these were like some story arcs for season like 6 and 7 of the Clone Wars, the original versions, and one of which, there was 2 generally still considered canon novels, Ahsoka and Dark Disciple. And Ahsoka, you see in Tales of the Jedi, that last episode or so of Ahsoka's journey, where she is on this farming planet and kills an Inquisitor, does come from like a chapter of the Ahsoka book. The talking about participating in the siege of Mandalore and her and Rex basically faking their deaths comes from the Ahsoka book, which I think this was all part of, and they did include it now into the new season 7 of Clone Wars. But I believe that was an original plan of Filoni's back during the first run of the Clone Wars.
This bothers the shit out of me because everything is out of order. Like, I understand. My lament is about the Star Wars story department is they can't just stay in a single timeline. They have to jump through the timeline and fill in, missing parts. Bothers the shit out of me. Not reflective of what I feel about Underworld, by the way, but
also that would also include, Andor.
Yeah, still bothers the shit out of me about that. Andor's fantastic. I haven't watched the final three episodes yet, but we'll find out next episode on that one, people.
There was like a 3 to 5 episode story arc that was going to follow Quinlan Vos, who we saw in only one episode of the Clone Wars, a kind of rogue Jedi.
The guy in the background here?
Yeah. I think was one of those dudes who was like a background person in some of the
was he in the episode where
they go after Cad Bane?
They were going after Cad Bane, and Anakin and Obi-Wan were jumping through the mists of the different spires and stuff.
I don't know about that one. It was Quinlan Vos and Obi-Wan Kenobi who were tracking down Zero the Hutt, who is
never mind
Jabba's uncle, and he's actually being hunted also by Quinlan or by Cad Bane.
Okay, so never mind.
Quinlan Vos has a horsepower of foresight, where if you do a touch sight, or if he picks up an object, he can see like the last time somebody touched it.
Cal Kestis has that in the video games. Yeah.
But he was the first one on screen to have that.
Yeah.
And Vos actually was a very popular character. He was one of those like background Jedi in a couple of the prequel movies, but he ended up being a very popular character in the in like the Jedi Knight comic books that were printed around the time of the prequels, that kind of filled in some of the gaps of the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
Most of which are all non-canon now, but he was a very popular Legends character. And then he got brought into the Clone Wars with a speaking role and whatnot. And so this story arc follows Quinlan Vos being sent by the Jedi Council to infiltrate the Separatists and to become an apprentice for Dooku as a fallen Jedi, with an attempt to, and this is what was kind of dark about this, was that the initial intent was to like assassinate Count Dooku. And Ventriss, who had already been kicked to the curb by Dooku, Vos like approaches Ventriss to help, and they go through this thing where Vos does actually fall to the dark side, but it's actually his feelings for Ventriss that actually kind of helps bring him back towards the light. And they both take on Dooku, and Dooku kills Ventriss.
Is this on screen?
This is all in the book Dark Disciple, which was generally based on a proposed arc of Clone Wars season 6 and 7.
Yeah, okay. So this is a lot of homework that one has to endure.
I only know this because I used some Google machines in the past.
Okay.
I basically a couple of years back I Googled what's the gist of the Ahsoka book and the Dark Disciple just one time, and so this is where these come from. So this is the immediate aftermath of this. So you get Kenobi and Vos bringing her to Dathomir, laying her in these burial pools or whatever.
And it is Dathomir. It looked like Dathomir.
Yeah, it is.
I recognize some of the constructions from the Cal Kestis games.
Right. And the spirit is Mother Talzin, who was the leader of the Night Sisters, who was slaughtered by Grievous, whose spirit had helped, that she was the one who helped revive Darth Maul and Savage Opress and whatnot. And of course, we got to see other parts of the Massacre of the Night Sisters in the previous Tales series, Tales of the Empire, where we follow Morgan Elsbeth. So,
oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
What I actually kind of like about this is that they do kind of tie in some of these semi-canonical things that just kind of it helps fill in some gaps. It helps tie it together. And these aren't hard watches, as in like long or in depth. And if you don't know what's going on from the previous, it's still generally you can go, oh well, Ventriss died, and these Jedis are dropping her off. Okay,
can I give you a corollary to that? I don't necessarily agree with you, but I understand what you're saying. I was racking my brain as the way I do. I'm like, when the hell would have Ventriss been killed? Because in all my experiences with Ventriss was she was almost unkillable. She was highly skilled. She was fantastic at what she does and extremely dangerous. And then suddenly I'm seeing Obi-Wan Kenobi sad as they drop her corpse off in what looked like Dathomir, which you later confirmed, which I wrote in my notes. And then I just stopped writing notes because, yeah. And I'm like, there's a lot going on here that I am very unaware of and uninformed about, and this bothers me. My suggestion would have been, don't show this. Just start in Mos Espa or whatever it is that they're at in the next scene when she's alive.
Well,
just do that.
This made me I wondered if they were going to do some version of the Dark Disciple
because they drop her off in this pool,
right? But we see her with hair and helping Omega in the Bad Batch. She shows up in the Bad Batch. So
that's like, right, and that's like
maybe they're doing
shortly after
what Filoni did with Thrawn, and instead of making Thrawn a huge threat post Imperial period in the New Republic era, like he was in the original books, making him a threat pre-Rebellion era. But now it definitely looks like the Ahsoka series is setting up a version of Heir to the Empire, which is fine. It's fine. I'm okay with it. But my point being is, I'm like, well, Ventriss is alive at least a year or so after the end of the Clone Wars. So clearly they've wiped out Dark Disciple, which like I said, I had kind of Googled because a lot, a lot of people, as TV shows were starting to come out like 10 years ago or so, maybe 5 to 8 years ago, when Disney Plus really started ramping up a lot of these other shows, you had speculation videos which talked a lot about these various projects that either were left hanging, especially they started talking about it when they brought back the Clone Wars. Are they going to be using any of these old, ideas and whatnot? And the Bad Batch was literally an arc that was semi-rendered
Sure.
from Clone Wars season 6.
And that's fine and everything, but do you not agree, like, this little tidbit right here, it didn't add anything to the story for Ventriss. It just showed, oh, she's already dead. Obi-Wan's here for some reason. Oh, and this is for the casual fan. And so the casual fan's going to feel a little left out and frustrated, because when they try to look for how this works in the video realm, they're not going to find it.
And you're right. There's probably something to be said with this. Okay. But for those of us who even had we'll call it a wave top amount of information to it, I thought it was kind of cool. But that's because I had done the research on it years ago, and this random shit sticks in my brain.
Yeah, this shit is awesome if you know about it, or if you know enough to be able to stitch it all together. This is fucking candy or heroin to a true fan. Don't get me wrong.
We'll stick with candy.
Get it.
Candy's fine.
Heroin's pretty good too, though.
Anyway,
remember kids, don't buy drugs. When you're famous, they give it to you for free.
Ventriss was one of
Love Actually, everybody
was a very tragic character too, because she was, and that you see her backstory told after Dooku kind of kicks her to the curb. They kind of do some flashbacks and whatnot, all in canon in the Clone Wars series. She was kidnapped, I think, by pirates and rescued by a Jedi. She was trained for a while as a Jedi. Then he was killed. And then she became an angry Dark Force assassin who Dooku eventually picked as a potential, apprentice before Sidious makes him kick her to the curb. And then she's basically floating around for a while trying to figure out what to do, and becomes a bounty hunter. And then, as we see later on, she's trying to hide because she clearly can either live and never be with the love of her life again, or stay dead.
Right.
She's like, I'll live.
Life. And so here she is in the background being a ticket voucher.
She's basically security for some, I don't know, spaceport or something.
Yeah. I forgot this kid's name. What do you remember this kid's name? I thought he was Kanan for a moment.
I wasn't sure when I saw his name is Lyko.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
So I wasn't sure if it was either going to be him or, like Kanan. I was like, they don't really look like Kanan.
Didn't look or sound like him, but he had the same coloring as Kanan.
Right, so but Freddie Prinze has basically said he's not coming back as Kanan. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, he basically did.
Dead, so
he basically did the start of the Bad Batch as like the last favor to Dave Filoni.
Yeah, yeah.
But I thought maybe this is Jod.
Who's Jod?
From Skeleton Crew.
Fuck. Are you seriously the what's his name? Yeah. What's the actor's
Jude
name?
Law.
Jude Law? Seriously?
Well, and the reason why is in the very end he kind of mentions that he was trained for a while by a Jedi who was killed.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, this you know,
And we know
this coming
Skeleton Crew
not
takes
long.
place during the New Republic era.
Correct. So I was like, you know, if this is like 15, 20 years before, then yeah, this
That
could
could
be
work.
Jude Law. And I'm like, oh, well,
He learns
this guy.
He learns dastardly deeds and skills. I mean, he still
And
has
then
a
I
heart.
figured,
He still has a heart in him, though. You know.
yeah, well, I figured that's, and we'd see, because they showed clips of an Inquisitor. I'm like, well, I guess this is how Ventriss dies. Real. Like, she dies after helping Omega, but she dies training Jod and protecting him from an Inquisitor or something like that. That's
So do you
that's
think
how I thought.
do you think this takes place after the end of
Bad Batch?
Bad Batch?
No, I don't think so.
She had hair. She had hair during Ventriss had hair during Bad Batch.
You know what? Maybe.
And
You
I mean,
know,
she didn't have this guy with him.
no.
So in Bad Batch, what takes place at the end? It takes place 10 years later. So we still have another 10 years of the Empire.
I think it's what you mean, the last episode, the time skip?
Yeah, the time
I
skip
think it
of
might be.
the final episode still takes place like
I think it's almost
in the heart of
15
the
years
Empire.
later.
Okay. I mean, that's still 5 years. That's still 5 years of Ventriss being around with long hair.
This kind of strikes me as maybe this is a couple years skip from where she was. Like she helps Omega, because you know the Bad Batch all takes place, I think, right around within a year or so, maybe 2 years of the end of the Clone Wars. You know,
Yeah, two years post.
I
and then
think.
it does a time skip. And 10 years is not an unreasonable assumption. So I would say we've got another 8 years of the Empire before the Battle of Yavin.
Maybe. So this basically what it is a few years later, she's working security at a ticket booth. She just kind of, she has decided to not do bounty hunting anymore. She has this conversation with I think the ticket master or whatever. And then this kid tries to come in and get off work. And he turns out she can tell he's a Force user. You know, the stormtroopers are hot on his tail. Long story short, she ends up having to use her abilities to protect him from the stormtroopers, and he's looking for the path, which we've right.
Oh, and Ventriss has a yellow lightsaber, by the way,
which we first see in Bad Batch when she helps Omega.
Oh, I forgot about that. I can't even recall that, but I trust you. And we got the sweet stormtrooper butt right in the foreground right here.
Right.
Gonna change the channel. Here we go.
So she saved him from the stormtroopers.
This kid's also a Jedi with a teal lightsaber, which these are colors we don't normally see, by the way, but in the Cal Kestis games, they're regularly.
I thought it was
available.
A standard blue one.
No, it's teal. That's not. Yeah. See, that's teal. That's not standard blue.
Okay. But if you go back to the previous picture of the kid, that looks more blue.
It does, without a reference. Absolutely. Yes, I can understand that. You'll see a more royal blue out of it, but what are we doing? We're just talking about colored lightsabers here, whatever.
But anyway, the kid wants to find the path, which we first find out in Obi-Wan Kenobi, where at one of these stops, he notices Quinlan Voss's signature. And he's like, Quinlan was here. So
wait a minute. When did we know about the path, by the way? I had questions about that.
Obi-Wan.
In the Obi-Wan series?
Yes. Remember all the people that tried to help escape? No,
absolutely not. No. There was the path. I mean, that was 3 years ago, dude. No, absolutely not. I'm not going to rewatch it either. That's a time thing.
I just
Good for you. Good for you.
So the path was
my
this.
brain reflects
The path is the
majority of the people.
This is the fucking Underground Railroad for the Jedi.
Understood.
For escaping Jedi and Force users. So that's what the path is. And Quinlan Voss had helped setting it up. And I'm like, oh, maybe are we going to get Quinlan Voss in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series? No, we never see him. We do get a visual. We do get a quick cameo. He shows up. He basically tells Ventriss his body he loves her as he lays her into the pool, leaves, and then we never see him again. But she's like the path, and he mentions the name like Master Voss or something like that. It's like, oh, okay. And now she's sort of intrigued, but she still does the whole, I'll help you, but I don't really want to, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're confronted by an Inquisitor.
This guy, by the way, sinister, really, really bad guy looking. I liked this guy.
The tales Star Wars tales have brought out some really neat looking Inquisitors.
Yeah.
The one that Ahsoka kills in Tales of the Jedi looks almost kind of like Grievous.
Yeah. Also that, yeah. And this guy was actually very competent. It took two people to take him down. Ventriss, who is also exceedingly competent, was wildly outmatched by this guy.
I think she was also rusty. I don't think she had really used these skills. Remember how rusty Kenobi was with his skills.
Agreed. But we saw a lot of dexterity with her in the initial phases of the battle.
Sure.
Yeah, and she could be rusty. That's an added factor. But still, this guy exceedingly competent.
Yes.
To be able to fight her. And she even had two blades, which, by the way, this color combination, mwah, fantastic.
It's almost green.
It's almost green. And then we got this color combination. Woo! I loved this.
Yeah, that was a lot of color.
The red one, the yellow, and the teal, which you could almost argue is regular blue, but it's still not.
It's all primary colors.
I know.
Oh my God, head blown.
I know. And we got white right in the middle, which is what happens when you have primary colors. Actually, it would not be white, not with light. With chemicals, yes.
Anyway,
dark black, but whatever.
She gets kind of knocked around a little, and this kid
is able to recover the two lightsabers.
But again, this guy falls into the cocky dark side where he's going to gloat, and that's where he gets killed. Because he also probably doesn't think much of the Padawan skills either.
No, and brutal. This is brutal death, by the way. One of the most brutal we've seen in animation.
That's a good one.
That's up with Yaddle, by the way.
Yeah, Yaddle's I think was a little bit more brutal, just because of everything that came of it. Not quite as brutal as some of the live action deaths we've seen.
No, that's true. But yeah, this was rough. This was a rough one. So I have to say that this is the most amount of slides that I have. It was all with the first episode. Every other slide I have is one, maybe two for each other episode left thereafter. So,
but what I like about this particular episode is she basically, as they escape on the ship, she basically tells this kid who she actually is, and he's like, "Oh fuck." She's like, I'm Asajj Ventress, former apprentice to Count Dooku, Sith assassin. I've killed many Jedi, probably people you know. And he's like, oh, shit. So he's not really sure where they are, but he doesn't really trust her since she killed a lot of Jedi clones, people who he would have served with. They end up on a typical crime planet. But she says that she knows Quinlan and she doesn't want that dangerous life no more, and they want to locate the path. So he's still a little skeptical about her, but she's like, well, we can go. I know somebody where we can get some information, try to find information on this path. And they go and find her old bounty hunter acquaintance, Razzie and C-21 Heisinger.
Oh, how cute. You know their names.
No, I'm reading it.
Oh, okay, good. There's Razzie. Or is that
Yep.
C-21?
No, that's Jesus.
That's the
He
only,
won the
that's the
Razzie.
only picture I have of this episode, by the way. So,
But they basically kind of offer a trade. You know, Razzie will give them some information on, you know, how to find the path if Ventriss and Lyco help steal an Imperial ship array. You know, and you get to see, you know, they go to this planet Casaro where they, you know, see these brand new Star Destroyers, the Imperial class Star Destroyers being built, right? And everyone's like, holy shit, they're all huge and everything. They have to steal it from the deflector ball, those golf balls on the side of the Star Destroyer bridges.
I just now realized what those were. Like
Balls.
Yeah, the big balls. What that big ball was that they were trying to go into and grab the motherboard.
What, did you think they went to space at Cop Center?
No, I didn't think that. I just was like, oh, there's a MacGuffin. Here we go. Let's do this. And yeah.
No, I like the fact that it's a chunk of a Star Destroyer. And of course, they have to plan to try to get in. You know, the plan, of course, always goes to shit because that's what happens in TV and movies.
Every time.
The droid, you know, but they do a little misdirection to, like, you know, disable the transport, and, you know, then it becomes a running double cross the whole time. You know,
Well, she went to what's the kid's name?
Lyco.
She went
Razzie.
to Lyco instead. Razzie went to Lyco and goes, you need to be careful. You can't trust Ventriss because she's always looking out for herself. And I can show you the way, the path to the way. Or whatever, the way to the path. But you'll have to trust me. And so he's already saddled with, like, oh crap, do I have a double cross here?
Yeah, he's like, but how do I know I can trust you?
Exactly.
But the droid, you know, Highsinger, he tries to ambush and kill Ventriss, and they're taking off with Lyco after he loses the shield array, and they eventually do double cross. So, well, we can't get paid for the shield array, so we're going to turn the Jedi kid in for a lot more money anyway. But Ventriss manages to get free, gets loose, slices up the droid, and basically holds them at lightsaber point and forces them to, you know, drop them off with the coordinates. So they continue with this. It's wild. It's crazy. They move on to the third episode, and it's like a Western. They're riding on this camel, like thing across this desert planet. They come across an elderly farmer.
Yeah, who was a soldier or something for the Separatist movement.
Leader during the Separatist who recognizes Ventriss.
Yeah,
and his
as an ally.
Yes, and he thinks that she's awesome. And it's like, oh, I know who you are, Lady Ventriss. You were apprenticed to Count Dooku. We're on the same side. She's like, yeah, I don't really do that shit anymore. And he's like, well, let me get you some food and water. And the granddaughter's like, dude, we really don't have any water. And she's definitely suspicious of strangers. He's like, oh, yes, well, I was wounded by these raiders. And she's like, well, you know, if we get you some, you know, we'll help you by getting some water. And, you know, we'll try to give you a quick hand, right? So they go out in the speeder to this deep, like, bottomless pool of fresh water in the middle of the desert canyon. And then they're
super valuable, by the way.
Yeah.
Super valuable. And there's not one standing sentry guarding this very valuable pool, which I thought was weird. Because the people that were there, these blue aliens, which I don't have a picture of, and I apologize for, but you would think they'd at least leave one person there because they're worried about these raiders to come get this water.
Yep.
They have technology. They can work in groups. There's a lot of them.
basically, this is a Western where the protagonists find a way to bridge the gap between feuding settlers and the natives.
Yeah.
You see a little bit like this at the start of season 2 of The Mandalorian, where Din Djarin makes peace, between the townspeople and the Tuscan
I almost
raiders
said the S word.
Yeah, between the Tuscans and the town folk to kill the crate dragon that's destroying them both.
Well, that's only because he was taught by who was the guy in the first season that said, "This is the way," or "No, I have spoken."
Oh, Quill.
I have spoken. Yeah, Quill, and he taught Mando how to speak Tuscan Raider.
No, he taught him how to speak to Jawas.
Yeah, to Jawas. That's what it was. My bad.
He
took that.
Mando said in season 1, Mando did communicate with Tuscans when they were hunting for Fennec Shand. He said he had dealings with the Tuscans before.
Right. So
and
Mando
he spoke
learned
in sign language and stuff.
To listen.
Yeah.
And Mando learned to listen through him. And that's how season 2 happened in the first episode with the crate dragon and the Tuscan Raiders there. So, and we see that same lesson pan out here with this kid, Nico.
Lyco.
Don't care. He looks like a Nico.
Maybe. But he, as a Jedi, has kind of a wider understanding and is able to communicate with these tribesmen who's like, this is our sacred water hole and whatever, and you guys just come in and take whatever you want. And then they have to have here, let's settle it down peacefully. They show up with this huge horde in tow, and the grandfather's about ready to throw down. He's like, look, you've got to make peace. You make peace, then you guys can work together, and then you both can have water and survive. She's like, you got wounded. Some of their people are dead. You guys have got to make peace. And so they do. The weapons get set aside. They make peace. And then Ventriss and Lyco follow the directions of one of the tribesmen to where the path is. And they see a ship in the distance. And like she says, sends Lyco on his way. And he's like, well, aren't you going to come? And she's like, I can't, because she basically knows that in order to live, she can't be with Quinlan anymore. So she kind of turns from it. But he decides, you know what, I want to stick with you. And so she goes and catches up, and they ride off into the sunset together.
Yeah.
Never know what will happen next. But
that's a freaking open storyline, which I know at some point, if the George Lucas story people are going to be able to continue, that's a big if. We'll find out at some point. So
we could eventually see her in live action. That's what this means.
Well, we could see him in live action too, with maybe Cal Kestis. He's about the same age.
Well, the funny thing
Cal Kestis is already rumored to be in a live action thing.
She is supposed to be, she's a night sister of Dathomir. And wouldn't be surprised if she shows up as a cameo somewhere in Ahsoka season 2. Clearly, there's going to be some night sister connections with Thrawn and whatnot. And the, witch sisterhood that he brings from the other galaxy. So it's very interesting. All right, I think we can hit this this Cad Bane tale a little faster. So basically, it's almost like the beginning of a mob movie. There's two young street kids running around, Colby and Nero. They're both Duro. One's green skin, one's blue skin. The blue skin one will eventually become Cad Bane. They live as pickpockets, trying to find ways to survive on the
street rats. They were literally called street rats, like Aladdin.
Right. Well, it is Disney.
Yeah.
Cross promotion. And then after the song and dance
this
routine,
guy, This guy, no, I'm sorry, that's Cad Bane. Damn it, I don't have a picture of the guy that actually buys them off.
There is a proto Cad Bane out there, a guy named
there is.
Laszlo. His name's Laszlo. It definitely sounds something out of a mafia movie.
Yeah, this story is not as complex. It's basically High Noon.
it's High Noon. It's almost like a mob movie and a Western rolled into one. It's like I've seen a version of this. This was still pretty well done, you know.
Very well done. There's a good twist at the end too.
Laszlo gets these kids to kind of help him distract this store, which is a front for a gambling ring, and you know, Laszlo and his gang go and knock it over while they're kind of disrupting everything, and you know, the kids, you know, see a guy get killed and they're a little stunned, and so as the police show up, the kids are a little slow running, and Nero gets caught while Colby escapes with Laszlo and his gang. Yes, Nero's the green guy.
And Colby's in the getaway car with what's his name?
Laszlo.
And Laszlo says, "Welcome to the gang,"
and gives him
got good news and bad news. Share. Bad news is your friend is caught, but good news is
you get his share. Yeah.
Which is like 10 pieces of whatever they were able to buy luxurious meals with. So
right. So they skip forward a few years, and now a young adult Colby, now going by Cad Bane, returns back to Duro with his girlfriend Erin after Laszlo's killed by the marshal during some raids, you know, trying to get a score over there. They come back without him. Cad Bane grabs this guy's hat, and then
who was his mentor, basically. He cared for him.
Mm-hmm. And kind of brings him up. It's not quite like a Quill Yondu sort of thing. To a degree.
A little more sinister.
A little more sinister. There's not much in the way of paternal, but there is kind of that gangster, crime boss, gang leader, and protege that you see in both Westerns and crime movies. And but the marshal of this section of a city kills Laszlo, right? So now Cad's on revenge, and he comes across Nero, who's now a deputy, and they basically both warn each other to stay out of each other's way.
Yeah, Nero gives clear warning, like if you don't want to cause, if you're not going to cause trouble, I'm not going to take you in.
Yeah,
I owe you that. Like, which he owed nothing. He owed nothing because Cad Bane let him take the rap for everything. You know, he ran away, and
it wasn't so much that he got caught; the other guy didn't.
That's the code, right?
Yeah.
So we have a past. I'm going to give you a moment. You know, make the decision, and he didn't make the right decision.
Nope. Cad Bane sets fire to the store that they originally got their major crime spree involved in all those years ago. The marshal shows up. Bane, calls him out and kills him in a duel. But Erin, who's come up to try to stop him, it is a revenge killing.
This girl.
But she gets wounded, and
it looks like she dies. She's gonna die, or she's mortally wounded.
She looks wounded anyway.
Because Cad Bane and
Nero,
what's his name? Nero shot at the same time. They're both good shots.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was Cad Bane and the marshal. The marshal.
Was it the marshal or was it Nero?
No, I'm pretty sure it's the marshal. Cad Bane kills the marshal, but she's wounded.
There's a way we could revisit it. She is wounded, and it looks like mortally. And so he's Cad Bane's distracted by his girlfriend being wounded, and that's enough to bring the security droids in, and Nero's there to take Cad Bane in and to send him off to jail.
Well, Erin grabs his pistol while he's
Oh,
distracted.
as he's about to turn to Nero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She grabs his
That's
pistol
key.
because she doesn't want him to get killed.
Right.
And we eventually find out why. So he gets arrested. Nero's now the marshal. He married Aaron. They have a son named Isaac. And for the first half of this little vignette,
In the whole episode.
They're like,
Is
but
this impending
the
doom.
first half of this is waiting on Bane to. They learn that Bane's getting out of prison and waiting.
Yeah.
They expect him to come in. He
Bane's
argues,
people are
to
waiting
the
him at the
council.
court.
Yep. They warn away the marshal tries to warn them away, but he's outgunned, so he walks out. The town council warns him, Nero to just let it go, basically. But he's like, nope, he's coming back. It's like, it's coming back. You should go hide. It's like, nope, I got to do this.
Especially if he finds out about Aaron. Like, they didn't say that to him, but the council was talking in between themselves. Like,
yep.
Oh, and that's when you realize, oh crap, he's with Aaron.
Yep.
And then you don't see Aaron at this point, but you're like,
Yep.
oh no, this is why he's not leaving.
Yep.
He's not fleeing because Aaron is there, even though she's not. We later learn that
Right.
she dies. But
Bane learns that Aaron died years before, but they eventually have a duel. Isaac, who we think is Nero's kid, witnesses the whole thing, and he's
Isaac's
a mess.
kid. Oh, wait, Isaac.
Yeah.
Isaac, we
Isaac.
think is Nero's kid. Yeah, is
That's
that what you said?
he keeps calling him Papa. He calls him his son. All that.
Yeah.
But basically, they kind of dies realizing. Bane realizes that Isaac is actually his son.
Well, Nero says so. So Bane goes to Nero and says, "You took everything from me," and as Nero reaches up to Isaac's face and rubs it, he goes, "I didn't." He goes, "Not everything."
Right.
And then he dies. And then
exactly.
It's soul-sucking scene, by the way.
And you see this this little animated kid just crumbling and just not, like trying to figure out what it is. But then Bane just turns and walks away.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? So, here's the big question that I have. Like, did Nero... I feel like Nero really did take everything away from Bane because he orchestrated this scene where he was going to get killed in front of this child who thought he was his father, right? When it was really Cad Bane who was this kid's father. And
I don't really feel
he was able to orchestrate. He orchestrated the situation fatally to turn this kid away from Bane.
Well, I mean, he basically has raised this kid as his own. So that kid thinks Nero is his father. And he sends Nero away with a droid officer to get him away from the problem. The kid escapes and sees and shows up and sees the issue and sees the fight.
True.
So he's not trying to use the kid to manipulate Cad Bane.
Not maliciously.
In fact, he's even warned him away before. And Nero did not go out of his way, even in the previous episode, to, kill Bane. He told him, "Hey, don't come in here and start a problem, and then we won't have a problem." And Bane did it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
He brought his girlfriend came with him. She got wounded, and rather than just grab her and try to run, he's kind of caught, and now he's like, oh, well, maybe I need to kill my old friend now. And it's just, Bane puts himself in a lot of these situations. This is a very grim ending where the previous trilogy of stories ended on a higher note.
Yeah.
But again, that's kind of the way most of these go. There's not a lot of, like Tales of the Empire, they all end kind of darkly. Tales of the Jedi, one ends dark, one ends with hope. So you kind of get a little bit of that. Like there's an up and down with these. At least in Tales of the Empire, I think when Barriss dies, she dies some ways redeemed for her mistakes. So there's a bit of a positive outlook on that. So you get to see some of, there's a lot of, I think they try to match a high with a low with these stories. And I generally think they tell these pretty well. Like this one.
These are good. These are good, very good storytelling devices.
Yeah.
Even though it was redundant with the Cad Bane story and High Noon and everything, I still appreciated it. They still had a twist to it. There really wasn't anything wrong with it. How many times can you tell a certain story originally, right? 7 times. That's it. So,
well, take for instance Kurosawa, right? The Seven Samurai, one of the legendary films, right? It was remade in the 60s as The Magnificent Seven, which is nowadays a very highly regarded Western. But that's basically what the Seven Samurai is. In the Clone Wars, because in addition to the Sci-Fi serials and adventure serials that George Lucas grew up on, he also was a big fan of Kurosawa. And there were a lot of elements of Kurosawa's.
Do you think that's where he got his Japanese influence in the Star Wars universe from?
I would assume so.
I'm just kidding. I'm being an asshole. So,
but there was like a Forbidden Fortress, I think, was one of Kurosawa's that was very heavily influenced the 1977 Star Wars, the original film.
Mm-hmm.
But
yes.
Again, in like season 2 or 3 of the Clone Wars, they literally did a almost Seven Samurai version. Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, Anakin are helping defend a village with a bunch of bounty hunters.
Well, Zack Snyder's Star Wars film, which ended up being Rebel Moon, was literally Seven Samurai.
The Samurai, yeah.
So
the quest is a basic story plot that we see all the time. The superhero origin story we see all the time. Good acting, good story writing makes the story entertaining to watch, interesting to watch.
And there are certain ways to make characters effective, and it's not infinite. It's not. You can tell it in an interesting way. Like how Cad, we see that Cad Bane has a child. He realizes this, and then he still walks away after killing the surrogate, let's just say surrogate father for all purposes and whatnot. He still walks away after killing the surrogate father in front of this kid that's supposed to be his. Like that's cold, man. That's dark.
And the only thing that would make this better is if that kid grows up to try to track down Cad Bane. Clearly.
Oh, guess what? That's going to be happening, I'm sure. Like they wouldn't do this otherwise.
Well, Cad Bane got killed during Book of Boba Fett. At least we think he got killed.
Did he though? Also, did Timothy Oliphant get killed? Really? We don't know.
Well, Timothy Oliphant was last seen in a Bacta tank. With I think at the end of Book of Boba Fett, but I don't know. Maybe they fed Bane's body to the Rancor. Who knows?
I genuinely don't think Cad Bane's dead yet. But that's up for another debate completely. So I got you. Okay, let's give grades. Let's give grades. Finish your thought.
But anyway, they're all very I grew up watching a lot of westerns, and of course, most of the westerns were all from the 50s, 60s, early 70s, before the westerns kind of died out. At the time, I watched them with my grandfathers, and I really liked westerns, so I recognize a lot of the western motifs. You see, the third episode of the Ventriss arc is a story of trying to find peace between settlers and natives. You have it's like these very like almost spaghetti western type ones. This one smacks of almost like Godfather, and Cad Bane stuff is like almost Godfathery, and there was that like the Indiana Jones hint, like taking the hat of the criminal who kind of recognized him.
Yeah.
There's a little nods to a lot of classic stories, and I liked it. I thought that you had an interesting combination of the western and the crime drama in the Cad Bane arc. It's a little bit more straightforward, reluctant mentor in and rescue in the Ventriss arc, but all it does is continually show Ventriss's turn further and further towards a light path.
Yes, agreed.
She may not become a member of the revived Jedi Order, but she has done less and less shitty things the farther away from being Dooku's apprentice she is.
Yes. So let's give grades here. So the first 3 episodes for Ventriss.
I give them a solid A-.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm a little miffed about that opening scene, which is why it's probably an A-. I just it was unnecessary, and it made me feel like I was missing things, which you should never make the viewer feel, right? Or and here's the most insidious part about that is, if I was to go and research where I could view where this incident happened, it doesn't exist. I'd have to read it,
That's a fair criticism.
And that's bothersome to me about the Lucasfilm story group. They just don't get that. They don't understand that. So A-, it was still solid storytelling, solid character development for Ventriss. I'm going to go with Nico. Maybe it's Rico. Oh, damn it. Well, his name is Rico now. It's Rico Suave. We're going with that. He looks like that. So,
well, he is very
solid
suave.
A-. He was smooth. He was a smooth kid. He survived as far as he did before he met Ventriss, and he actually saved Ventriss's life. So whatever. It doesn't take. I mean, it takes a lot to do that. So, what about the second storyline, Cad Bane? The origin story.
I like it. It's dark, but I like it. Again, it's not an unfamiliar story, but it's definitely it doesn't pull any punches.
Yes.
I'm going to
go ahead. I'm going to offer a B+, only because we've seen the showdown before in the Book of Boba Fett, between Cad Bane and Timothy Olyphant, and it was a good showdown. It was terrifying, and I felt like it was a little redundant here when we saw a whole episode of them building up to this marshal having to deal with, oh, he's coming, he's on this transport, and there's nothing I can do about it. Like, he could have left. He could have taken Isaac. Like, he wasn't coming after the town to take revenge. He was coming after Nero. By the way, the name Nero is a nice misnomer. It's the exact opposite of what we see of Law and Order. when we hear that name. Like,
Sure.
is that not ironic?
No, I get it.
I think that was done intentionally. So
Did you get like it all takes place under like elevated tracks? Did you get like a kind of like a grimy Chicago, New York feel?
East End, New York, 2001, Spider-Man 2 feeling, yeah. Grand Theft Auto 4 is what I was thinking of, because a lot of Grand Theft Auto 4 takes place underneath the High Lines.
Yeah, I can
Liberty
see why.
City.
I could see why you might give it a B plus. But overall, across the board,
It was
I think this is
unnecessarily fatalistic. It felt to me.
Yeah, but if you watch these Star Wars tales, at least one of them is very fatalistic. Dooku's descent to the dark side.
I would argue Dooku's descent to the dark side was actually justified. That showed a gray area. I mean, this was unnecessary. He could have left. It was still tragic. I still felt the emotions for it.
Well, if you watch most Westerns, he kills the bad guy.
Okay. Let's just argue real fast because we got to wrap up. But let's just say that there needed to be another storytelling element that forced him to be stuck there. Like there was some kind of storm coming in that forced all transport out of the city to be canceled. There was some kind of ionic atmospheric issue that only allowed for incoming traffic, not outgoing traffic. Something that forced his hand to have to stay there.
Sure.
Rather than him choose death.
That's
willingly.
But that would be the MacGuffin. That takes something away from the noble hero aspect of this. The man who's going to face down the criminal gang by himself. The lone hero, you're right,
I'll
the High Noon.
I never saw High Noon. And by the way, fun story, his daughter came and gave a lecture at one of my classes at USC.
Gary Cooper's daughter?
Gary Cooper's daughter, yeah. She was very nice. I enjoyed her lecture very much. It was very insightful. She was very...
I enjoyed a lecture from Khrushchev's son.
Oh, did you?
It was a very good lecture in
college. Did he say capitalism was the best? And he loves Disneyland?
No, but what he did say is that his father's famous banging the shoe thing, he said his father instantly regretted it because it made him look like a whack job.
Exactly.
But it was
what was it? We will bury you.
Yeah.
Was that?
Yeah.
Did he also mention Archangel?
I don't.
In that speech,
remember.
I feel like he did. But yeah. Anyway,
he was a communist. He probably wouldn't mention much religious stuff.
No, Archangel was the American invasion of Russia during World War I.
Whatever.
Yeah. So Gary Cooper's daughter gave a good lecture. But High Noon, you didn't have transportation that could get you out of a desert oasis very easily. So, the marshal was kind of stuck. And also, in that same regard, the marshal was the sole protector of the town against these ruffians that were coming in, for lack of a better word. So, Gary Marshall was forced to protect this town of 25 people. Not Gary Marshall, Gary Cooper. Gary Marshall completely different dude.
Jewish
guy goes again with the guns. What?
I would have loved to have seen Gary Marshall in that role.
Oh my god. I don't do many Jewish jokes like that, trust me, but I crack myself up sometimes. It's so stupid. But Gary Cooper his character was forced to protect that town. Because otherwise the town would have been laid waste too. Whereas this took place in a major metropolitan city, and there were droids, law enforcement droids, that could have given backup. There were flaws in the story that I felt.
Well, there were, but the droids mostly got smoked by Bane's gang. They
You could
did
add
have kind of a
all
wider
the droids
shootout.
you need. You could add all the droids you need, and with that kind of city, there were a lot of resources in that city.
Well,
and by the way,
his
it
deputy
could see
quit.
that city was getting better every episode for that 3
You
episode
did see
arc.
that, and they kept going back to that store, kind of where it all began.
Yeah. That was the anchor. That was the anchor right there. So, a good, a B plus. I mean, they played out the whole High Noon parody very well. It was not disrespectful to that idea. I felt it could have been executed just a tad better. Not poo pooing necessarily. Just
either. What I will tell you is like this story was at least a coherent string, right?
Yeah,
Not
it was
saying
all
that
one storyline.
It was one single story. Not saying that Ventriss's wasn't, but it was a little more quest
episodic.
to quest. Like they had the long arching goal, but you're right. It was a little more episodic from one to one, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of like a season of The Mandalorian. Okay, well, this is the goal here, so we got to do this in order to get this, so we can go here and then there.
This was a story between two friends, and that's what those 3 episodes was all about.
One became a cop, one became a criminal.
Yep, and that was effective. I liked it. I did. I already made my case, but
it's a little bit. There's a little bit of Departed in there.
Yeah, definitely.
So, I mean, it's a very
I need to rewatch that
story.
movie, by the way.
It's a very familiar story if you've watched enough TV and movies. But overall,
I can't tell you how many people I've grown up with that I've had to kill. All of them. You're lucky you're on the East Coast.
That's a show.
I know. I would have been. I would have been taken out a long time ago.
But
spoiler alert, everyone, to The Departed.
there's just it's an old story, so it's a familiar story. So, I mean, I mean, shit. That's how Revenge of the Sith ended.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, brother against brother. Yeah.
So, I like these tales. They come out basically now. It's like almost every other year.
They're fun bite-sized things.
They are. Filoni has a really nice knack for these things. There's a lot of nice. It fills some gaps. The animation is still extremely popular with its fans. And, actually, I'm sorry, the first one was October of 22. Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Empire, they dropped May 4th last year. And this, of course, is May 4th this year. I don't know if we reviewed either of those two.
We reviewed Tales of the Jedi. I don't remember reviewing Tales of the Empire.
You know what? You're right. We did review Tales of the Jedi. We did not review Tales of the Empire.
Because I talked about Yaddle's brutal death and everything.
Right.
So
you would think we'd have a better idea if we had done Tales of the Empire.
We would have some kind of memory of that, would we not?
Yeah. It might have been stuck in the middle of something else going on.
There was a lot of stuff going on last year. All the Disney Plus things were coming out, and now it's all like trickle down. So
well, the funny thing is everything was kind of like stumbling back together after the strike. Like everything was like all on top of itself.
Yeah, it really was. It really was. I mean, I don't even remember when Kenobi came out. Did that come out in like 2023 or 2022?
22, I think.
Jesus Christ, that was 3 years ago? Holy shit.
Yeah.
God. All right. Shall I start the outro?
I think we should. I very much enjoyed this. Yeah, that'll be
A lot of fun. So
I hope next year.
Sorry. Talk again.
Oh, sorry, we got kind of muted.
The-
I said
the-
I
you-
hope.
The music's really soft, but your microphone was really muted.
That was
I
weird
played
because
it.
like I couldn't hear you.
Oh, weird. Can you hear me now?
Good.
Yeah, I can hear you now too. Very good. Keep going.
Yeah, that was
start
very
again.
splitty. You know, I hope Filoni keeps doing these because they're all like getting like up in the 90s of critical score, whatnot. But maybe Tales of the New Republic or something, or maybe Tales of the Mandalorians. That'd be neat.
We'll find out. But
Stay
until
tuned.
until then, we'll see. So until the next time, you guys, we're those sci-fi guys. I'm P.S. McKay. You guys keep dreaming. We'll keep working. So long, everyone.
And I'm DT Cavman, and you can join me on Tales of the High Ground.
Those Sci-Fi Guys is an independent broadcast by AlphaSci Productions, produced by DT Cadman and P.S. McKay. Silverman Sound Studios Field ED is under Creative Commons license. For more information on upcoming episodes, follow P.S. McKay on X at PS McKay or go to thosci-fi-guys.com for past episode information. You can now find us on Spotify, so head on over there. But don't worry, you can still find us on Apple and Rumble, as well as YouTube for live video podcasts and Facebook for different posts. Be sure to leave a like and a comment and let us know how we're doing.